group of skeptics are meeting in Toronto next month to question the events of 9/11. The meeting comes as thousands are set to gather to remember the lives lost on this, the 10-year anniversary of those attacks. The conspiracy theory meetings are set to take place at Ryerson University, and that's where CTV's Amanda Blitz joins us now. Amanda.
Hi, Jacqueline. That's right. Ryerson University, that's where we are. It's supposed to take place from September 8th to September 11th. You might notice the date. Well, that's got some people concerned. I'm here right now with the organizer of the event, Graham McQueen. So, Graham, why are you having this on September 11th, the 10th anniversary?
Well, I think the 10th anniversary is the appropriate occasion to sum up all the research that's been done over 10 years, which suggests that the story we've been given about 9/11 is not true.
But what do you say to those people who say that it's so insensitive to have it on September 11th, on the 10th year anniversary?
I think the people who find it insensitive are probably people who feel that folks like me are nuts and busybodies with nothing better to do. If that's your perspective, you would see it as insensitive. But if you open up your mind to the possibility that we are actually researchers, in my case, university professor for 30 years, doing my best research on this, and we're trying to determine what happened, why it happened, and who did it, those kinds of questions, and we're saying the official story is wrong. I think if you open your mind to the possibility that we're right, it's not insensitive, it's actually crucial. Why would Canadians want to build their foreign policy and their domestic policy on a lie?
So have you faced any resistance?
Anniversaries are important, and we knew that the 10th anniversary of 9/11 would be important one way or another, whether we did anything or not. And I had some fears about how it would be used. It would be used to promote myth and lie and deception. It might be used to reinvigorate the flagging war on terror. There's always Syria, there's always Iran, and so on left to go. But there's another way that it also could be used that I worried about, and that is to put the whole thing to bed, so to speak, to say this is now part of history. This is not the present anymore, this is the past. And because it's the past, it'll be in the history books and the kids will read it. That is the official narrative, the lie about 9/11. And I thought, in order to try and prevent that, we've got to have an event on the 10th anniversary which will say, this isn't over, this is just beginning. This is just beginning.
The information that we receive from really all sorts of media, with the exception of the alternate media, the internet, seems to be just kind of telling us the same story over and over again, but they really can't address the hard questions that are out there. They will say, they being those that support the official story, that, well, all those questions have been answered. There's books out there. Well, they've all been answered. Surely they've all been answered. But when you read those books and when you get into those questions, you find that they have not been answered.
This is what we're talking about at the Toronto hearings, presenting this evidence to the distinguished panel and packaging it. And I'm very excited to be a part of it and to hear the other distinguished panelists discuss the other aspects of the extremely explosive destruction of the Twin Towers, including nanothermite composite explosives found in all the World Trade Center dust.
People that read this material and have looked into it realize the official account can't withstand scrutiny. It's just full of holes and contradictions, gaps. The difficulty is bringing this to the attention of responsible parties. The political class in the United States is basically, you can't talk about it, much less do anything about it. And so I think bringing it to Canada and bringing everybody together and trying to put on the table a collection of evidence that we are confident about can raise the profile of this issue, because that's all we have to do is get people to take a look at it.
So I've been interviewed a lot, especially recently in connection with the hearings, and the media have been told, I suppose, for 10 years that conspiracy theory is the term to use, and that's why we don't interview these people much, and that's how we're going to disparage them when we do interview them. It hasn't worked very well for them recently, because if that's what you've done for 10 years, instead of looking into it, instead of thinking about it, the most you've been able to come up with is the term conspiracy theory, then when you're finally confronted with a whole bunch of articulate intelligent people together, and they just dismiss that as BS. What do you mean conspiracy theory? Let's talk about it. Then it turns out you don't know anything. You don't have anything else to say. So one interviewer after another, I find, has been speechless once you explain that the conspiracy theory label is useless. They have nothing else to say.
Conspiracy theory is a way of trying to discredit inquiry. I mean, it's perfectly legitimate to say, here is a very, very serious event that occurred. It killed thousands of people right off the bat. It's killing firefighters still today. It's used to justify war. It's killed thousands of American soldiers. It's killed millions of Iraqis and Afghanis. It's literally in the millions. And to consider that investigating the roots of that is somehow not legitimate, or that you have to be somehow psychologically impaired, some sort of conspiratorial thinking. They're trying to psychologize all this to where people can dismiss people who even ask these questions. I think it's being a responsible citizen to ask questions of your government and to not just take what they say without any kind of critical thought.
That's only half of it. We're crazy nuts who don't know our feet from our hands, and we're very dangerous. So much so that they have at least 2 officers inside the U.S. government to deal with conspiracy theorists. This is Orwellian thought control. The government is in the business of telling people not to listen to conspiracy theorists.
They can't answer the physics, they can't answer the questions, so what else can they do? When you're getting difficult questions, of course, you just smear the person that's asking those questions if you can't answer those questions head on. And I think the nice thing about these international hearings today is that anybody who looks at it will realize that we're not walking in there with tinfoil hats. We are just normal people. We are ordinary citizens who are concerned and trying to do something about it. We are not irrational people. We are bringing up legitimate questions that just cannot or have not been answered.
We're putting our reputations on the line, speaking publicly about an unpopular subject. And all we're asking is that we be taken seriously and that the evidence be looked at.
I think we face an uphill battle in our effort to establish a real inquiry into the horrific events of 9/11. And a necessary part of that battle was advanced in our 4 days of hearings. We have focused on the strongest evidence and reasoned arguments that the official account of 9/11 is not true. Any open-minded person, in my view, who genuinely seeks the truth and is willing to examine the evidence would support a real inquiry with the power to subpoena witnesses and with the political clout to pry loose from a secretive government evidence that they have so far managed to suppress. We really want to begin a long process of rebuilding trust in the democratic state in the only way it can be done within the law, by opening the government to the legitimate needs of its citizens to know and to see and to be heard. We should be a movement to rebuild trust through real inquiry. To bring about a rebirth of democracy and trust in the United States, this must be done in and by the people and some part of the state together.
We are gathering together to demand a real investigation that accounts for all of this evidence, that uses the scientific method relative to its examination, that uses immunity to bring forth witnesses, and takes testimony under oath. That'll be a real investigation, and we don't know who is capable of performing that yet. That's beyond our area of expertise. But we hope the Toronto hearings will aid us toward that end.
I look forward to the day that there can be a real, legitimate, transparent, independent court review of the information that is being put forward at this tribunal and the work of others who have done the necessary investigations.
There's a lot of people that are easily manipulated because all they basically have is a stereotypical value system that's dished out by the media.
The average person goes to their newspaper and reads their local magazine and listens to their news. It's very hard to get people to break a habit that's been inbred in them for the last, well, ever since they were born. So it's a difficult task. I think the alternate media, the internet, is an absolute critical part of this whole thing.
I mean, the news shows are a farce. Don't get your news from TV. Turn off your TV. Get your news from other sources.
I believe in human curiosity and human intelligence, and there's a limit to how long people can go on thinking that one bullet inflicted 7 wounds on 2 different people in the presidential car in Dallas in 1963. That sort of thing slowly becomes ridiculous because of what's being called paradigm shift. It's not that you persuade the older generation die. And then you have a new generation whose minds have not been distorted by the propaganda campaigns.
Would you have any advice for, say, a young person who is inspired, hungry for truth, and looking to make a difference?
Yeah, I would just, watch the people that seem to be making a difference today. There are alternative journalists out there, if that's what you're interested in, if that's what your talents lie, where your talents lie. That's an incredibly important part. We frankly it appears, need to build a new media. It's critically important for the future. So we need people to have the courage and take the steps necessary, make the sacrifices necessary to build that media, take the risks. And if that happens, I think that we're going to make a lot of progress in the future.
Well, I guess the first thing is think for yourself. Don't believe something because Peter Dale Scott said it, and certainly don't believe something because the New York Times said it. But trust in your own ability, not just to understand what has been said so far, but if you have the curiosity, go a little further, get into the primary records and discover something new that nobody else has ever discovered before. That's relatively easy to do in this field because there's so much pressure on people not to conduct this kind of research that if you become independent and do it, you may find something which will contribute to the record.
You need to wake up. You need to look at what's really going on, not just the myth, the propaganda.
I guess if I was speaking to young people right now, I'd say your youth, your physical youth, is a transient thing. We barely get a chance to realize we're young when we look in the mirror and realize we're not young anymore. So, enjoy your youth, but that's not gonna do it for you in your life. You've got to come up with something that's more substantial. And please don't buy into all the stuff about your career and that's the biggest thing in life. Truth is important, goodness is important, compassion is important, helping this planet is important, and don't hesitate to give your life to that, your energy to that.
The evidence is dispositive. In legal jargon, dispositive means no-brainer. It means all other possibilities have been eliminated, that when you look at this and analyze it, the only conclusion you can have, because all doubt has been removed, is that explosives, incendiaries, and controlled demolition were involved in bringing the towers down.